Our protagonist, a man of exceptional talent in swordsmanship, mastered every technique and skill with ease. There was nothing he couldn't learn, and no opponent who could escape his blade. Through relentless effort, he became unstoppable. After dropping out of high school, our boy dedicated 20 years to honing his skills with a knife, eventually becoming the finest swordsman in the country. In a bustling restaurant, the staff managed the crowd when suddenly, the chef's phone alarm catches their attention. A staff member mentions it, and the chef realizes he must have set it to vibrate. Seeing the notification, he briefly wonders if it's from the game he deleted earlier, assuming his phone is malfunctioning. At that moment, another staff member informs him that a guest has arrived. The chef instructs them to tell the guest he isn't available. However, Mr. Kim, the guest, doesn't wait. He walks into the kitchen himself, dismissing the chef's excuse as an obvious lie. Mr. Kim declares it's time to hear the answer he's come for. He believes he's given the chef enough time to consider the request, and it shouldn't be difficult for someone like our boy, who handles swords every day. Realizing he might have come off as insensitive, Mr. Kim opens a suitcase full of cash as a show of sincerity. He explains that he's offering an advance payment of $300 million if our boy can complete the task. However, the chef swiftly cuts through the meat, startling everyone. He firmly states that this is a kitchen where cleanliness is paramount, and there's no place for someone like Kim. Our boy orders Mr. Kim to leave. The guest becomes furious, exclaiming that a sword saint shouldn't be cutting fish in a place like this. In response, the chef grabs a kitchen knife, further intimidating Kim. As Kim retreats, he tells our boy that he's not giving up and will definitely return soon. After Mr. Kim and his guards depart, one of the staff members remarks that the chef was being offered $300 million. He adds that if it were him, he would have accepted the offer immediately and asks why our boy turned it down. The chef replies that all his life, he's only ever sliced fish heads with a knife. He knows nothing about being a thug. The staff member suggests that the chef could leverage his reputation as a sword master to intimidate people without actually harming anyone and still collect the money. With that, he could buy a house. Our boy replies that he would decline the offer, even if someone offered him billions. Curious about the notifications, the staff member wonders if the chef is dating someone. But our boy dismisses it, explaining it's just a stupid game, though he's too embarrassed to admit he's still playing Divine Protection. The boss calls for the cleaning guy, who leaves first, while our boy reflects on his past. He remembers how his family went bankrupt when he was young, forcing him to work tirelessly and focus his life solely on making money. His phone keeps ringing, with the frequency becoming excessive. He decides to reinstall the game, realizing that the characters have been invading the academy for years. He taps the notifications, and a prompt to touch the screen appears. Hearing the nostalgic soundtrack and seeing the female characters still as beautiful as before, he feels a wave of familiarity. To our boy's surprise, the mobile screen froze, and then suddenly, a bright light emerged from the phone. The same staff member from earlier calls out to him, saying the boss is asking for him. The staff member notices that the chef is gone and wonders why he left his phone behind. The boss calls again, and the staff member speculates that the chef might have gone to the restroom. Meanwhile, the phone screen shows the completion of the transfer. Upon seeing the game, our boy immediately recognizes it as a typical pay-to-win model with a standard auto-hunting system, just like countless mass-produced mobile games. No further explanation is needed. He originally played the game because he was captivated by the appearance of the female characters and got drawn into it. Now, he finds it ironic that after spending a fortune and playing through multiple cycles, he's neither a playable character nor an NPC. He's become a background character, whose whereabouts are completely unknown. Our boy has possessed this character, and in this new world, his name is Kongjiyama. While walking, he accidentally bumps into a woman, and they both apologize. He notices that the setting of Divine Protection M resembles Korea. The names, locations, and geography are only slightly altered, with a few minor character variations. Thanks to this, Kong adapts quickly. A whole year passes, and now he's living as a teenager, unsure whether this is real or just part of the game. For him, it's a life he can't fully enjoy, much like his previous one, until that fateful day arrives. Returning from school, his parents proudly address him as the great sword master Kong, calling him their pride. They see his acceptance letter, and embarrassed, our boy asks them to put it away. His parents, beaming with pride, say they've raised him well and can't stop feeling proud every time they look at the letter. As he starts sweating, they remind him that the entrance ceremony is tomorrow and ask if he's packed everything. Pushed by their excitement, he begins packing, realizing that his modest dream of living a normal life has been shattered once again. Everyone's joy makes it impossible for him to refuse. He had tried to avoid the ceremony several times but couldn't, leaving him already exhausted. While packing, our boy stumbles upon a family photo and wonders how the Kong he possessed managed to get accepted into such a prestigious school. He recalls how things unfolded and remembers his parents telling him that last year he manifested divine powers and took the entrance exam immediately. Shocked, he realizes that before he possessed Kong, the boy had already unlocked divine powers and passed the entrance exam for Hawk Academy. It dawns on him that his character is a genius. He begins to understand that divine powers are special abilities, similar to skills in a game, but not everyone possesses them. These powers typically manifest through genetics, and based on whether one has divine power, society is divided into 3 classes: the privileged, the commoners, and the poor. Hawk Academy, where Kong was admitted, was originally founded to preserve the power of the elite, though it was established under the guise of a hero civilization. Today, it serves as an exclusive school for upper-class families. Recently, however, a system known as special admission was introduced for non-hero families, and the character our boy possesses was admitted as one of these special students. He also understands that heroes are essential because of the threat posed by the Demon King. Yet, despite all this, he knows this isn't reality. It's just a training ground preparing students for war. Our boy speaks aloud, saying, "Divine power," and a status window appears, still unfamiliar to him. He sees the divine power he's unlocked and notices a skill called painlessness, which has a 12-hour cooldown. He scoffs, calling it nonsense. Then, his attention shifts to the divine power granted to him upon possessing Kong, the blessing of the sword god. With such power, he assumes no one will dare challenge him. It's a divine ability he's never encountered in the game before, and the name contrasts sharply with its overly simple effect. The power allows him to slash anything he cuts, but he finds it absurd to label such an obvious trait as a divine power. What feels even more out of place is the activation condition. His sword must be exactly 30 centimeters in length and less than 5 centimeters in width. He realizes it's the precise size of a sashimi knife, leaving him completely baffled. As the absurdity of it all sinks in, our boy concludes once again that life rarely goes the way he expects. He double-checks his packing and realizes he forgot his equipment. Our boy knows that even the lowest-grade E-rank equipment costs tens of millions, while average seating costs hundreds of millions. So, A and S-rank items must be treasures in themselves. He understands that the tuition alone is exorbitant, and he doesn't want to spend more money on something he's being forced into. However, since the academy requires equipment, he has to bring something or risk making a bad impression on his first day. With that in mind, he decides to head to Daixo to purchase a weapon. His thoughts are interrupted by a memory of his first master, who insisted on using a Japanese sashimi knife worth over 100 million. Suddenly, our boy finds himself thinking about that old man again, recalling his words, "A true master never blames their equipment." The next day, dressed in his uniform and entering the academy, someone questions whether the equipment he's carrying really belongs to him. During the entrance ceremony and the equipment inspection, he pulls out the sashimi knife as his weapon. Every year, the upper-class students play pranks to assert dominance from the start, and the student inspecting him asks if our boy thinks the academy is a joke, seriously questioning his decision to use a kitchen knife for the class placement test. Our boy simply replies that it's his weapon and clarifies that he's a special admission student from a modest family. He explains that the tuition alone was already a huge burden on his parents, so he couldn't justify adding the cost of an expensive weapon on top of that. The instructor glances at the color of his name tag and understands that, for a student not from an upper-class background, the academy's fees would indeed be overwhelming. He feels it would be wrong for an institution supposedly promoting equal education to push away such a sincere student. Our boy adds one more thing. Blaming equipment is something only amateurs do. A master never blames their tools. The instructor finds it odd for a teenage boy to say something so profound, yet it feels as though he's already reached some kind of pinnacle in life. The weight of his eloquent words and his unyielding spirit convince the instructor that this boy is the real deal. He approves Kong Jiama's weapon. Grateful, our boy thanks him, while the students behind him recognize him as a special admission student. They whisper among themselves, wondering how someone like him ended up in such a prestigious academy. The instructor from earlier quickly tells them to be quiet, warning that after the evaluation, depending on their actions, he can either be their angel or their devil. Hearing this, our boy decides to step outside for a break. He finds a bench and reflects on how, even though he expected this, experiencing it firsthand is still unsettling. Kong has completed the equipment inspection and survived the entrance ceremony. Now, all that's left is the class placement exam. As he sits there, he contemplates his situation, realizing he's truly made it to this school, Awakens Academy, also known as the Hero Training School, where he will be studying for the next 3 years. He notes how different the academy looks compared to the graphics in the game. If he had to exaggerate, he'd say the academy is the size of a small town, which is impressive. Attending a school meant for the upper class feels surreal, especially since he had to drop out of high school due to family circumstances in his previous life. Soon, the class placement test is announced, and students are instructed to gather at the training hall by 1 p.m. He understands that while the entrance ceremony is over, the class placement test remains incredibly important. Since an exam is still an exam, he knows he must familiarize himself with the process. Looking at his knife, he realizes that ever since coming to this world, he hasn't had a reason to use it. He remembers his master's advice: never put the knife down, even for a single day. Even while you sleep, keep holding it. Kong feels as though he's unconsciously adopting yet another habit from his master. After 20 years of living by the knife, he wonders whether a 1-year break has dulled his skills. He removes the cover from the knife and finds it far better than he expected. Curious, he decides to test it by cutting a leaf. Suddenly, the system alerts him that the weapon has met the activation conditions, and the blessing of the sword god is activated. However, since both his physical body and the weapon are at too low a level, the system initiates suppression to synchronize with the user. Shocked, our boy can't believe that simply drawing the knife triggered the blessing to activate. As the synchronization completes, the system wishes him the blessing of the god. Before he can process this, extreme pain strikes his entire body, and he realizes that if this continues, he's going to die. Suddenly, he finds himself in a new space and, confused, questions where he is. Panicking, he throws the knife away, and instantly, the surroundings return to normal, bringing him back to reality. His body still throbs with pain, and while he understands the activation of divine power, he wonders if the chaos surrounding him is linked to the sword god's blessing. The backlash is unbearable, and although the divine power of painlessness offers some relief from mild soreness, it can't alleviate this kind of agony. Our boy realizes that using his skill in this manner is unsustainable if every activation brings such pain. At that moment, the system sends out a reminder for all students to gather at the hall immediately. He knows it's time for the test and, unwilling to leave the divine weapon lying on the ground, he reluctantly decides to pick it up, assuming the pain was only a consequence of the first activation. As soon as his fingers touch the blade, his body is racked with extreme pain once again. Meanwhile, at the training hall, all the students have gathered while parents chat about the exorbitant cost of admission. Suddenly, their attention shifts to Lord Clinge, the 7-star hero and descendant of Aaron Nibelung, as well as the direct disciple of the founding hero, Awakens. Known as the strongest human, Lord Clinge's presence commands the crowd, and everyone returns to their seats. The 7-star hero sage greets him and playfully remarks that it's been half a century since they last met. Despite the years, she hasn't begun dressing like an academy director, and turning 70 doesn't seem to have affected her much. She quips that every woman wants to remain beautiful until her last day and offers to use her blessings to make Siegfried look 10 years younger. Siegfried, however, dismisses her offer, pointing out that while she approaches 70, she still hasn't matured. adding that humans should prioritize their inner nature. With a mocking grin, she calls him an old, amused by the fact that he's just as rigid as he was 50 years ago. Siegfried, clearly irritated, does not hide his annoyance. Media, on the other hand, teasingly, she assumes his granddaughter must be quite beautiful, and they both realize the test is about to begin. Inside the training hall, our boy scans the room, noting that he is the only one with black hair. Someone mutters if he is the black-haired foreigner, as the earlier chatter echoes in Kang's mind. Suddenly, a striking girl enters the hall, capturing the attention of every student, including our boy. She is none other than Abel von Nibelung, the granddaughter of the Sword Emperor and the main heroine of the game. The sole reason our boy spent a fortune on it. The subspace was created by the ancestral hero Barol Joaquin, who established this reality alongside the Academy. It is a dimension separate from the real world, where pain and damage are real, but no consequences apply to reality since there is no interference from the outside world. Even taking down someone is overlooked. Siegfried and Media discuss the subspace battles, a school tradition, but this year, they are trying something new with a battle royale format. Participants will be split into groups of 10, and it will be a survival game with no restrictions on equipment. Siegfried notes that without restrictions, the privileged students will have an unfair advantage. Media explains that they had to compromise, as the Academy is funded mostly by the nobility, and she fought hard to introduce this new system. Inside the training hall, students admire the granddaughter of the Sword Emperor, while our boy is shocked to see that she is no longer just a 2D character. This feels completely different. He inwardly calls the students fools for trying to approach her, but admits he might have done the same if he didn't already know better. Since he has played the game before, he knows that Abel possesses the miracle blessing M, which ties her to the game's protagonist. Beautiful people always seem to have someone by their side, and he realizes that, as a special student, he doesn't belong in their league. He resolves to avoid getting involved, hoping to escape a noisy school life. He sets 3 principles for his future: to finish his studies without incident, secure a conventional job, and live a safe life. He recalls that the hero's job comes with a substantial salary, but just the act of drawing a knife left his body trembling. He's still shaking. Let the hero protect the world, he thinks, while he searches for a more comfortable job. The class assignment exam for the 783rd year at Awakens Academy begins, and a mini floating machine explains the rules. This year, as previously announced, it will be a battle royale among 10 randomly assigned cadets. First place will be assigned to the Star class, second and third places to the Dragon class, while 8th to 10th places will be assigned to the Ordinary class. Class assignments will be based entirely on these results, with no time limit. Our boy immediately recognizes the setup. It's just like the game. Knowing his goal is to remain ordinary, he decides not to waste time and aims to finish quickly. The subspace generation device activates, and the exam begins. He resolves to avoid drawing his knife unless absolutely necessary. After a while, the evaluations for Group 24 are completed and announced. Soon after, Group 47's evaluation is completed as well. While observing the results, Media mentions to Siegfried that his granddaughter, with the bloodline of Changseong and Jialgung, is sure to achieve significant results. She notes that a time of 7 minutes and 14 seconds is incredibly fast. Abel, wanting a fair assessment, used a C-rank weapon to achieve the record, placing her among the top 10 in Academy history, although she couldn't break Siegfried's own record. Siegfried acknowledges this is natural for someone of the Nibelung bloodline and prepares to leave, assuming the event is over. Media informs him that there is still one group left, but he dismisses it as unimportant. Just as he is about to leave, a sudden, strange sensation washes over everyone. Media questions whether Siegfried felt it as well, to which he responds that it is unbelievable. As they try to make sense of the situation, something suddenly falls from the sky. To their shock, they witness the sky itself break apart, and 2 students emerge from the subspace. The entire crowd is confused, but then another light shines, and a knife falls from the sky as well. Media quickly calls for medical staff to check the vitals of the cadets who have just appeared. One of the fallen students is our boy, and as he lies there, he accepts the results as inevitable, predetermined from the start. Earlier, the students in the last group began fighting each other, and our boy realizes with dread that he has been caught in a squad of death. He recognizes the infamous twins of malevolence, Mao Jun and Mao Shun, from the Iron King family. While these brothers possess immense talent and innate ability, they are also known for their brutal violence and boundless cruelty. Kong recalls that they deliberately toy with everyone for 30 minutes. Our boy is completely ignored by the twins, realizing he is so insignificant to them that he is not even worth their attention. Once the twins finish beating the other students, they ask each other how many remain. Jun states that it's all over, while Shun, surprised, notes that he took care of 4 students. Jun allows Shun to handle the last remaining girl, and Shun eagerly accepts. The girl trembles in fear as she watches them approach. Our boy feels a surge of frustration as he notices that the girl is already panicked and seemingly lacks the will to fight. Shun, seeing her fear, comments that she is just his type. Just as Shun is about to attack the frightened girl, our boy can no longer remain silent. He screams, questioning why they are going so far when it's just subspace, calling them psychopaths for their cruelty. Without fully realizing it, he steps into the chaos. The twins turn their attention to him, noticing his special student tag. They call him a lowlife, and Shun decides to deal with him personally. Jun instructs his brother to take down anyone who dares to disrespect them. Our boy, panicking, wonders what he should do. He considers using his blessing of painlessness, but knows that avoiding pain for just 30 seconds won't help against opponents who have been brutalizing their classmates for 30 minutes. Spotting a sword, Kong hesitates, aware that if he grabs it, the blessing will activate. He recalls the intense pain he felt earlier when using the blade. He had just set out principles for an ordinary, uneventful life. Yet not half a day has passed, and he is already on the verge of breaking them. The twins notice him holding the knife and taunt him, asking if he is mocking them. The terrified girl watches, worried for him, as Shun prepares to finish Kong off painlessly, finding him amusing. He charges at Kong headfirst, ready to smash him. Our boy realizes he can't afford to be picky now. He decides to use the blessing of painlessness for 30 seconds, hoping it will buy him some time. As he takes a fighting stance, the blessing of the sword god activates. His plan is to endure the pain caused by the blessing while fending off Shun. Shun scoffs, asking what a pathetic knife could possibly do. Kong knows that if he doesn't finish off his enemy quickly, he will be the one to die. He feels the absurdity of holding a sashimi knife, intended for cutting fish. He recalls his boss once saying that it's merely a cinematic trope. Such knives would never work against people, even if wielded by a god. Yet, he remembers a skill. If he strikes, it will certainly slash the enemy. As Shun closes in, Kong swiftly slashes with the knife, injuring the bully's arm in one decisive strike. The battle concludes in an instant. In his previous life, he recalls asking his boss why gangsters use sashimi knives. The boss clarifies that he should not refer to him as boss, but rather as master, and questions why our boy is curious about this. He remembers that his first master was a former thug who, as an act of atonement, cut off one of his wrists and later opened a sashimi restaurant, stating that he wanted to bring joy to others with his knife skills. Our boy recalls his master's skills being genuinely impressive and asks why gangsters in movies always wield sashimi knives, wondering if it is the same in real life. His master responds that someone with a fair amount of knife experience should not be asking such questions. Our boy explains that if someone is stabbed with a wide chef's knife, the skin will immediately contract, potentially making it difficult to withdraw. In contrast, a sashimi knife is too narrow, allowing it to stab multiple times and be easily retracted. However, there is no need for stabbing, as it is primarily used for slicing fish. He questions why he cannot do the same with people. His master, annoyed, explains that fish lie flat, and if they were standing, he wouldn't even be able to slice a piece of bread in one go. Our boy is disappointed because in manga, it always looks like a clean slice every time. He assumes his boss simply lacks the skill, but his boss, angered, insists on being called master, and makes it clear that even if the god of knives appeared, it still wouldn't work. In the present moment, our boy instantly takes down Shun, surprising everyone. The bully screams in extreme pain, telling Kong to stay away as he tries to run, begging his brother for help. He cries out in agony, demanding his older brother save him. However, our boy shows no mercy and finishes him off with a single decisive strike. Shocked by what he's seeing, Jun tries to calm himself, reminding himself that it's just a void space and his brother isn't truly dead. Even though this is true, he can't help but wonder what's wrong with Kong. It seems as though our boy has used the knife to take down someone for the first time. Jun's breathing becomes ragged as he questions whether his brother's defeat was just a coincidence. Growing more cautious, especially because of that knife, he decides his brother had been too reckless. Gripping his weapon with both hands, Jun amplifies both his defense and jumping power. He prepares to face our boy, activating all three of his blessings simultaneously. Confident in his rank blessings, privileges that commoners could only dream of, Jun believes his victory is certain, unlike his careless little brother. Meanwhile, Kong calmly counts down the 30 seconds of his blessing. As Jun leaps forward to attack, he realizes that Kong is just standing still. Determined to take him down, Jun closes in, but in an instant, our boy uses his blessing, defeating Jun before he can even land a blow. Jun falls to the floor, defeated in the subspace. Though our boy manages to win the fight, the 30 seconds of his blessing soon expire, and the overwhelming pain returns, causing him to lose consciousness. When Kong finally wakes up, he finds himself in a hospital bed. As he rises, someone nearby alerts the others, announcing that the student has regained consciousness. Our boy sees a face he hasn't encountered in person before but immediately recognizes it. The man who defeated the Demon Lord's 6th Legion commander 50 years ago. It is none other than Isekied, one of the 2 7-star heroes and the strongest human alive. Alongside him is Media, the head sage of the academy. They ask our boy about his health. Confused, he wonders why these figures of such importance are here, but they urge him to introduce himself. Isekied gets straight to the point, questioning Kong about his actions during the exam and the strange sensation that everyone felt earlier. Kong realizes it wasn't just his imagination, it was indeed him. Noticing Isekied's cautious demeanor, Kong understands that being marked by such a powerful individual is never a good thing. When asked to explain himself, Kong says that although it was a pocket dimension, he believed the actions of the others went too far. However, he acknowledges that his response may have been excessive and is prepared to accept any punishment without complaint. Media, with a teasing tone, questions why Isekied is treating a student so seriously. She informs our boy that while he was unconscious, it was Isekied who cleared his blocked blood vessels. With a playful smile, she adds that people tend to get more stubborn with age. Isekied becomes visibly embarrassed and asks why Media is bringing that up. Our boy then realizes that this is why his body feels as light as a feather. Media explains that while he was unconscious, they reviewed the footage of what happened in the subspace, including the moment when he threw himself to protect a beautiful female student. Playfully, she calls him the prince she's always dreamed of and starts flirting with him, while the old man, Isekied, chides her to show some dignity. She reassures Kong that no issues will arise from his actions and mentions that the Mao twins only got into the academy by currying favor with the elders, implying they got what they deserved. Our boy feels relieved, knowing he won't have to deal with them at school anymore. Media then reveals that they both came to inform him that he is the top scorer, a revelation that surprises him. Both Isekied and Media congratulate him, but our boy is left in confusion, realizing that on the very first day, he has already broken all of the principles he set for himself.